Good morning, football fans. Welcome to the Pigskin Prognosis podcast. I'm your co-host Sully here with Zach. Zach, say hello.
Hello!
There we go. We have a great show today for you guys. Talking about some playoffs, 2025 draft, at least the first 18 spots or so that are locked in, as well as just whatever else random stuff we want to talk about football related. So stick around, and I'm sure you'll have as much fun listening as we do recording it.
Woohoo!
So we'll start off the week since there is no fantasy updates or anything, since most leagues that aren't crazy are done. And there's no bye weeks unless you're one of the teams that didn't get a playoff berth, which, 26 other teams, less than that, 18 other teams. So I think we'll lead off with, again, my favorite segment, and I'm glad that we're starting off this week with it. It's the ZSBOTW. Zach Shitty Bets of the Week.
I was hoping you'd say the name.
Zach, well, let's start off. I jumped the gun a little bit. How was your New Year's?
My New
Got
Year's
a little
was
excited?
good. Crazy. Being in New Orleans with that terrorist attack that happened down here was wild, but yeah, we're all good down here. New Orleans is safe. There was a substantial loss of life that happened, unfortunately, but we're safe. Me and my wife are safe. All of our friends and coworkers are safe. So that's good. That's good news on for us. But
That's good. Yeah, thoughts and prayers go out to the family members and stuff that were involved in that. Unfortunately,
very unfortunate. Yeah. But how's your New Year's? How are you starting your year off?
it was good. I started mine off with Cheesecake Factory on
okay.
New Year's Eve. Yeah, it's my wife's go to thing. Like 6-7 o'clock at night, we'll go swing by, grab it, pick it up, come back to the house, and then watch the whole.
Damn, I gotta start hanging out with you guys more often. You guys got a maid over there.
Yeah, Ryan Seacrest's New Year's stuff and everything
Yeah.
else.
Okay.
Yeah, and
You
watching
watch the
that.
East
And then,
Coast ball drop and then go to bed like an old man over there on the West Coast.
no, actually, we stayed up until midnight. Thank you very much.
Midnight.
My time,
Okay.
time. Yeah, Pacific time. Yeah, no, I was up. I was up until actual midnight my time zone. So
Okay. Yeah, I watched the East Coast ball drop and then I was like, okay, cool, whatever. But yeah, I mean, I was awake. I think I was up gaming for a little while, but
yeah, not streaming, but that's fine.
no, not streaming, not at all. Nah.
Robbing me of channel points. It's fine.
Well, I thought you'd be asleep because you normally go to bed like I don't know, old
My,
man time.
my means you assume you know my fucking sleep schedule. I've been awake at least every night for the last probably 2 or 3 months until at least midnight most nights, honestly.
Well, that's what happens when you don't have to go to work at 6 o'clock in the morning, or you can
I know.
work from home.
Yeah,
Must be
it
nice.
is kind of it is kind of nice. It is kind of nice.
I'm gonna be living that life over the next couple of weeks after my surgery this Thursday. So we'll see.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I had to follow in your footsteps. I'm having the almost the same exact surgery that you had. It's called a Brackenton labral repair.
I didn't have that done. I had a bicep tendinosis, and then that was pretty much it. As they put it, for my doctor was just saying that they basically cut out they basically reattach the top of your bicep outside of your shoulder, so it just gets rid of your the actual labral tear that you actually have in your shoulder.
Okay. Yeah, mine's a glenoid labral tear. So
Mine's like the posterior.
Yeah, okay. Ours is a little
Yeah.
bit. They're gonna go in and create an anchor and just basically suction cup the what's the
Bicep?
No, the labrum.
Okay.
I was looking for. They're gonna suction cup it back and then reattach a suture kind of on the backside.
Yeah, they sutured. They anchored mine right at pretty much the top of my whatever the hell that bone is in the top of your arm right there. That's like your bicep and shit. Humerus?
Your humerus?
Is it the humerus?
Yeah, your humerus.
Yeah, because your funny bone's at the end of it.
I
Yeah,
was
so
about
yeah.
to say femur, but I was like, that's your fucking leg.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I was like, yeah, that's terrifying. But yeah, no. So I think per usual, I think we'll start. Well, I can't say per usual because we haven't done this before. Starting us off.
No, we're throwing the whole episode is just gonna be out of whack.
Yeah, I know. Fucking everything up.
Really, the only segment we have is the bets and then draft picks and stuff. Talking about playoffs and whatnot.
I mean, it's true, yeah. But I got a feeling. I got a feeling, kind of like how the end of last weekend's episode was, or last week's episode. We'll not rabbit trail, but a rabbit hole, whatever the hell you want to call it. We'll I think the convo will just flow on and move on to other stuff. So I think we'll be able to cover the whole hour.
Yeah, I agree.
So
Well, I'm not going to rob anybody of some shitty bets of this week, so let's go ahead and get right into it. There are 6 games playing this week, all wild card games, 3 in NFC, 3 in the AFC. Instead of doing my usual 5, I stepped up the game and I just put down bets on all 6 for a total payout for a $10 bet of $524 if you win. So listen to these potential shitty bets or potential payout bets. Who knows? The first one is the first game of the weekend. Is the I'm sorry, not the first game. It's the first day of the games. The Pittsburgh and Buffalo game.
Baltimore.
That's what I meant. Thank you. I was looking at the next line that said Buffalo right below it. Pittsburgh versus Baltimore. I have Pittsburgh as a 10-point underdog. I think they're going to cover the spread. I don't think they're going to win, but I think because of how each team has won the home game this year, it's going to be close. They've played each other twice this year and now a third time. So I think against each other, each team is just going to let it loose. Pittsburgh is the considerable underdog in my opinion, and on paper in the scoring bracket, I'll say, and obviously in the sports book betting line. So I think that Steelers have a lot to show, and they need to just kind of throw the book at Baltimore and really try to drive home that knocking Baltimore out to move on. And I don't think that Pittsburgh is going to save anything in their back pocket to do it, because I think Baltimore would beat them in just a straight up fight. So I think Pittsburgh's going to have to get a little down and dirty to crank out that win. But let me retract it again. I don't think Pittsburgh will win. I just think it's going to be a lot closer of a game than the sports book is saying. Right now, they are 10-point underdogs. The spread is 10 points in Baltimore's favor. So I think Pittsburgh can get within that 10-point gap and still lose. My next bet of the week, for some probably surprise to some people, is, you know what? Let me stick with the Saturday games. I'll go. I started with the Steelers and Ravens game. My next bet is against the Chargers and Texans. I said that I believe that Houston is going to be able to beat the spread of 2.5 points and potentially outright win over the Chargers. So right now, according to an app that I used called The Score, they are 3-point underdogs. The Chargers are 3-point underdogs. But the Houston Texans, according to DraftKings, are 2.5-point underdogs. So I think that the Texans can at least cover that 2.5-point spread, if not win outright against the Chargers. So that's those are my 2 bets for the Saturday games. In case you're looking for just some Saturday games, those are what I would go with. Texans kind of have a little bit of a sour taste in their mouth in the last couple of weeks. I think they are looking for a strong playoff run with their rookie lineup. So look forward to seeing what CJ Stroud could do in some postseason football. Moving on to our Sunday games. There's going to be 3 games on Sunday. The first game is Denver at Buffalo. Buffalo is 8.5 or 9-point favorites, depending on the source that you use. I think Denver can cover that 8.5-point spread. Again, a lot closer of a game. I think Buffalo would be able to win, but I think it's going to be a lot closer just because Bo Nix and his electricity that he brought out against Kansas City. Again, Kansas City didn't really have any starters playing, so take that with a grain of salt. But it just kind of showed some character because they needed to win and they came out swinging. So yeah, they didn't really have have any resistance there. But now you can see what that offense would
Can
be
do against the
capable of.
backups. Yeah.
Well, I mean, when you look at like some of the games that Buffalo had throughout the year, I mean, you watch the San Francisco game. It was the first half was, a little iffy, and then you scroll back through Denver, Buffalo's schedule to look at some of their close wins against the Patriots in late December, the loss to the Rams. I mean, the barely winning against the Dolphins. I mean, like,
I get it. I
there's,
get what you're saying.
you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not trying to take anything away from Buffalo. I'm just saying I think that Denver's had that explosive offense that you saw like yesterday against Kansas City, albeit against Kansas City's fourth stringers, sure, but against a professional football team nonetheless. I think had they played the Browns starting their starters, they might have even scored more points. So who fucking knows? Because I mean, we put it at the top of the script every week that there were no bye weeks through the rest of the year. We've said that the last couple of weeks, but the Ravens had a bye week this week. They played the fucking Browns, and
That's true.
the Browns played Bailey Zapp, and they had to sit him because he threw a pick six on like the first drive. So yeah, I'm done.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's the end of the season. The Browns can't hurt you till next August.
Okay, my shoulder's getting hurt, man. My shoulder's killing me. Okay, yeah, I'm getting all worked up here. All right, moving on. So, anyways, Denver plus 8.5 versus Buffalo. The Philadelphia game, Philly and Green Bay. Green Bay is moving into Philly for the weekend to try and beat Philadelphia, obviously in Philadelphia. To move on to play who would it be? Either the Lions or the winner of the Bucks or the Commanders, right? No, or the Vikings, depending on their seeding. But irregardlessly, that's a word. I got Philly at minus 4.5, 4.5. I think that Philly's going to be able to win that game by 5 points or more. There was an instance last week where Jordan Love played in a game where Green Bay had a chance to become a higher seed. So they played some of their starters and he got hurt. I don't know the extent of the injury, but he didn't play the rest of the game. And it wouldn't have mattered anyways because the Commanders... Was it the Commanders that they were hoping to win? No, it was the Commanders. They were hoping to lose, and the Commanders won.
Yep.
Yeah. But
yeah, I think Jordan Love hurt his elbow is what I think it was.
Yeah, it was an elbow injury. I just caught bits and pieces of it throughout the day because it was a lot to keep up with who's in and who's out and who's playing for a quarter and who's playing for the whole game. And
plus, you're only playing dark and darker. It's okay. Don't lie.
Yeah, I got some eye races in. I got some eye races.
Yeah, don't fucking lie. No, it was promising just because he was on the sidelines throwing and stuff, and it looked like he had a hard time gripping, but they were calling it an elbow injury. So I wonder if he just like smacked his funny bone pretty good, or what the deal was. Hey, going back to the funny bone again. See, look at that.
Yeah, look at we tied it all in.
But yeah, the Pigskin Prognosis ties everything together in some weird fucking roundabout way.
Insert conspiracy theorist music here.
We'll do that in
post-production. Yeah. But yeah, I think Kev's going to appreciate the shout out in this episode because I got Philly winning this against Green Bay. I really got Philly winning against anybody in the NFC up until unless it came down to them or the Vikings or
fucking Lions.
Yeah.
Vikings got fucking smacked last night. I don't know if you watched it. Probably not because you were probably playing iRacing or Dark and Darker. But okay. No, the Lions defense came in fucking clutch last night. The one thing that they had their issues with, they look like they figured it out. And also helped that Sam Darnold, when everyone's sitting there fucking watching him in prime time, shit the bed.
Well, he's nervous. He got nervous. Okay, he got drafted by the Jets. He didn't know what a playoff game was for the first 4 years of his career.
Man's out there seeing ghosts again.
So now he's yeah, because the roles are reversed. Now he's out in the NFC where fucking Rodgers came from with Green Bay, and 3 of the teams from that division are in the playoffs. So yeah, sucks to be a Bears fan this year, I guess.
Yep.
Which we learned that against that Hail Mary against Washington. So
Yep.
yeah. Oh man. Okay. Yeah. So talking about the Vikings, they're my next bet in the lineup. I got the Vikings beating the Rams by at least 2 points. I don't see the Rams doing much against the Vikings, albeit yes, the Vikings got smacked last night. Who cares? Okay,
I do.
like who cares?
I do.
I like the Vikings. Truly, I like the Vikings. I watched the Minneapolis Miracle happen live on TV a couple of years ago when they beat the Saints, and I think I fell in love at that point. Now, albeit that was with Case Keenum, he ended up becoming a Browns quarterback for like a week. I loved him even more, and now he's doing fucking commercials with Progressive. So I might go get Progressive insurance after this fucking episode. Who the fuck knows? That's
Progressive, if you're listening, you guys should sponsor us.
Yeah, that'd be huge.
I got no problem getting a Progressive backup.
We could, yeah. I mean, who was the other guy that also was a sub for Cleveland? That's the other quarterback that they have as a sub on their.
Josh Dobbs?
No, well, Josh Dobbs was in Cleveland's roster, but maybe that's who I'm thinking of.
I'm pretty sure it's it. I know he's the other one in the commercial because he's like their like tax consultant or some shit for it.
No, maybe
in that commercial.
I'll have to look it up. Now I'm tripping, but I feel like, I mean, fuck. At this point, like everyone in the NFL has been a fucking backup quarterback for Cleveland at one point or another.
That's true. Valid statement.
I mean, damn. Okay. Anyways, back to the Browns breaking my heart again.
Yep, it's okay. They can't hurt you right now.
Okay. So yeah, Minnesota minus 1.5 versus the Rams, and then the last game of the of my 6-game picks for the week is the Washington Commanders at 3-point underdogs versus Tampa Bay. I think they can do it. I think Washington. I think Washington could just outright beat Tampa Bay. Call me crazy, but I think they can do it. The reason I think that is because Baker Mayfield, albeit a wonderful quarterback and a godsend from himself, from the Lord Almighty himself. I don't think he's got it against Jaden Daniels. He's got a lot of spunk. He's got a lot of drive and a lot of show, but I think that the young QB, Jaden Daniels, has a lot more to improve for himself, and being the first-year quarterback, I think the first playoff game that he's going to show out. And what another team to do it against than the team that just locked down their 4th straight division series, their 4th straight division win. So I think they're going to do it. Just outright beat Tampa Bay. But the bet is for +3. So
he's like, just cover, for the love of God, cover.
At least just fucking cover. If you lose, I can accept that, but I still win my money. Who cares? So those are my 6 bets of the week. I got Pittsburgh +10, Houston +2.5, Denver +8.5, Philly -4.5, Minnesota -1.5, Washington +3. If you parlay all 6 of those, the bet odds is +5140. That's 5140, meaning a $10 bet wins $524.04, which includes your initial $10 wager. So let's see how we
look at you sounding like you're fucking sponsored by DraftKings. Look at that shit.
Right? Yeah.
I feel like I was watching a DraftKings commercial on an ESPN UFC fight right there.
Okay,
Jesus.
Yeah. Catch me next week on Zach's Shitty Bets of the Week.
Yeah, there we go. All right. So since we're talking about playoffs, and it's that time of the year again, as much as most people don't enjoy this time of the year just because of the fact that football season's over, their team's, depending who your team is eliminated, and at least mine in your case, and a couple other people's. So you kind of got to pull for somebody else. So looking at who's in the playoffs, including the 2 teams that have a bye, which are the Kansas City Chiefs and the Detroit Lions. We're not going to mention anything more about the Chiefs, so we're just going to leave it at that. I'm going to ask you a 2-part question, Zach. So one is just for this wild card weekend this weekend. Which game are you most excited for? And of that, who do you think takes it all?
Ooh. Okay. All right. Well, okay. Let me break this down then. Okay. Starting with the first part of your question, the wild card weekend most exciting game in my opinion. I'm gonna give you two because
Okay.
I think there are two good games out there that are gonna be close. I talked
Mm-hmm.
about it earlier, and they're both on my bets, of course, because I covered all six. I don't know why I even fucking said that. You got, I think the first game is going to be Pittsburgh and Baltimore because it's a division game. They play each
Mm-hmm.
other a lot. They have a lot on the line. Um, with the uncompetitive nature of the Browns, it was really a wrap for Baltimore this past weekend, locking up the division. But had it been a little bit more of a competitive edge, Pittsburgh might have been able to take the division from them, which ultimately does not swap their seeds at all. They still play each other, but I think it comes down to the home field advantage, right? We talked about that. Pittsburgh won against Baltimore at home earlier this year. Russell Wilson went off in that game. Then you had the Baltimore game when Pittsburgh came to Baltimore again earlier in the season, where Baltimore had, Derrick Henry had one of the best games of his, I would argue, his career.
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore scored, it looked like they were just gonna destroy Pittsburgh morale for the rest of the year, and I don't know if Pittsburgh took that personally because if I'm not mistaken, I believe they played in Baltimore first, the first time they met, and then they played in Pittsburgh the second time. No, I'm sorry, they flopped. Baltimore played in Pittsburgh first, and they lost 18-16. And then when they came into Baltimore, when Steelers came to Baltimore, uh, they beat them by 17 points. It was 34-17. So both games, Pittsburgh was sub 20 points. Not by much, but they were sub 20 points. Um, if you flop home field advantage, I think it's a no-brainer that Pittsburgh's going to win. I think though, with it being in Baltimore and Pittsburgh now losing the division, they're kind of frustrated with the fact that they did beat the fact that they did beat the Bengals, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
This
they
you talking
lost.
about
No,
this
no,
last
no.
weekend?
Sorry, they lost
Yeah,
to
I'd
the
say the
Bengals.
Bengals. Yeah, the Bengals beat it. I think the Steelers are on like a 5-game losing streak, 4 or 5 game losing streak right now.
Yeah. So I think they've got a lot of. I mean, their last win was against the Browns, so we could really
I mean,
call it a
George Pickens right
5 game
now.
win streak.
Yeah, and say George Pickens can't fucking catch a cold right now. So
And I think they've got a lot to prove. But and it's, I mean, it's to lose out of a season like that and still make the playoffs. Relatively
yeah.
impressive, in my opinion.
Oh, I mean, Mike Tomlin, hasn't had a losing record in his career so far as a head coach, and it always seems to be like, all right, cool, I'm gonna keep that record going. All right, I have no reason to win another game. So
Yeah, and sure he hit his mark, but let's be real. Like the guy isn't just like okay, it's all about my record and move on with his year, right? Like
mm,
we'll play my one playoff game and we'll go home. Especially when it was under, Ben Roethlisberger and his commanding, you know, I'm the general, I'm in charge attitude. It was
mm,
all about like how can we win games? And there were
yeah,
some, I will say, I'm not a Steelers fan. I'm not a Baltimore fan either. But there were some Steelers games that were robbed of them. Like the goal line, it broke the plane, but he dropped it on the ground, so it was ruled a fumble or incomplete pass, whatever. Like
mhm,
that was against New England, I believe, and that was years ago. That stuck in my mind, and I was like, damn, they kind of fucking robbed the Steelers out of this. And there were some first down calls and timing issues, and playoff games throughout the Pittsburgh's illustrious over the course of history, illustrious playoff career that it could have potentially caused them to play another week in the playoffs.
yeah,
I don't think that that's going to factor into this game, but I think that the fact that they have lost the last 4 games in a row. Their last win was against the Browns in week 14. And now they're going into a division opponent's home field home court that they've played in multiple times, play there every year or every other year at the very least. It's just
every year.
Well, I mean, like not at home. I'm saying they might not play in Baltimore every single year. You know what I mean?
They're both division games. They one home, one away.
Is that how it works? Is it like that?
Yeah. Oh, people, I'm sorry that he films a podcast about football. I'm sorry.
I'm so used to baseball. Like,
no, yeah, it's for football. If you're a division team, you play one home, one away game. Those are like guaranteed games.
Okay, yeah. I knew they played. I didn't know if they just played. Like, they were only guaranteed one game against the divisional opponent. I knew they played. But I didn't know they were guaranteed two. Hey, you know what? This is all new to me too. Okay, whatever.
Apparently.
But the division games, and I called it a couple weeks ago when we had the division game against them. That between was it the Bengals? I think it was the Ravens and the Bengals back in like November. I was talking, and I was like, "This is going to be a close game. Y'all should pay attention." And it was like a 1-point win for the Bengals or for the Ravens.
Ravens, yeah, that like weird, yeah, that like 2-point conversion fail, yeah.
Yeah. So that's one. To answer part of your question, that's one game that I would keep an eye on, and the other game that I would watch would be the Washington Tampa Bay game, simply because, like I talked about earlier, you got Jaden Daniels, a rookie quarterback. He's got a lot to prove. His rookie season wasn't perfect. It was great. It wasn't perfect. He's in the playoffs, which is greater than a lot of other professional quarterbacks who've been in the league a lot longer than him have to have anything to say about it. Aaron Rodgers. But he's also playing against a really good quarterback from a really good team who was mentored by one of the, if not the best quarterback of all time. And I think it's going to be a challenge. And I think the game is going to be a shootout because Tampa Bay can put up points. And Washington can make explosive plays. And that the postseason, it just brings out the dog in you, if for lack of better terminology, right? When you get to postseason, you see it with baseball, you see it with basketball. Football's no different. When you get to a postseason game, it is all or nothing, because this could be the last game you play in your career, in your season, with that team, with your teammates, whatever. That is the last time, potentially, that you are in that same exact scenario where you believe you have the best team in the league. And those two teams both think they have the best quarterbacks, they have the best receiving core, they have really good tight ends, they have great offensive linemen, their defenses are solid. I truly believe that that's going to be a very close and exciting game to watch. So
right.
those are my two games that I'm going to be watching very closely this weekend. Also because I want Washington to at least cover the spread. That's the one I'm most nervous about. But yeah. But yeah, okay. And then to answer your other part of your question, who's going to take it all? That's a tough one. I have to throw a little bit of bias into my choice. But I truly...
Because you're a big Swiftie, I know. Okay, go on.
Okay, well, I'm not even going to pick a team in the AFC. All right?
Okay.
Which, surprisingly enough, because I am an AFC North Division guy, right? I think the Minnesota Vikings have a really good team and can play really good football. And the reason I'm not picking the Lions, because I can just see you over there going, well, the fucking Lions just whooped their ass, is because the Lions are hurt. And they laid out all their cards on the table to beat Minnesota. So they needed that win to secure the division. Otherwise, they'd be playing in a wild card game if they lost. So
correct. But you sit there and flip back and look at it, and Minnesota scored what, 3 field goals, and their kicker missed 2, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 3, but I know for sure at least 2. Granted, in that game.
The Lions defense did look good. I loved it.
For a team that's, so decimated on injuries, and yet still went out and beat a division rival, Granted, Detroit was at home, so that definitely some home field advantage helps out there. And against a team that was on paper looked good and was putting up high numbers and stuff. So that was my argument against your whole the Minnesota Vikings look so good.
Sure, but then look at who the other teams that could play the Lions are. Because if the Vikings win, they're not playing the Lions, because the Lions are going to play the lowest remaining seed, which is going to be Green Bay, Philly, Washington, or the Buccaneers. I'm sorry, not Philly. Green Bay, Commanders, or Bucks. So, or the Rams if the Rams beat the Vikings. But we'll just count that one out already. The Vikings are going to win. Let's say they play the Bucks, right? Or the Commanders. Two of those hot teams that I was just talking about. They're going to be rested, sure, but then you've got a team. Here's the other kind of like mentality, which now I have a whole new respect on when it comes to postseason and bracket play, is that when you have a bye, a team with a bye, yes, they are the better team, but depending on how many games the team that you're now played before you, no matter what, that team is going to be on a winning streak. No matter what. In a postseason bracket, they will always be on a winning streak. Now, granted, in this case, for the Lions, it would only be the team that they're going to play against would only be winning one game at a streak, but I mean, that could be a lot. That could be a lot of momentum to move forward against a big team like the Lions in the postseason, to carry that momentum forward, especially if it's going to be a close game. Like, let's say the Commanders and Bucks is a shootout and it's a close game and it comes down to the last play, or maybe like a toe tap of a catch in the end zone or whatever, right? You carry that momentum forward, you're going to have an advantage, a slight one, but you're going to have an advantage on the momentum side of things, right? And how you carry forward that into the beginning of the next game could make the difference between winning and losing. And the only reason I say that with a little bit of experience. I speak personally on like the softball playoff experience, because that's exactly what happened to us. And that was the difference between winning and losing. When we went to the Softball World Series in October, we played against a team when we lost out of the winner's bracket and we had to sit for 3 hours the next day. We played a team that had won 3 straight games up to us. And we were in there thinking, oh, they just played 3 straight games. They're going to be tired. They're going to be exhausted. They're going to be hitting weird. They're going to be throwing weird. And we just kind of went in there with the mentality of like, well, we just got to win and we'll keep moving on. And if we lose, we're out. And we got our asses kicked and we lost and we were done. We played one game in that Friday and we were done. But then you fast forward now, we just played our tournament in December where we had that same mentality where we were the only team left in the winner's bracket, and the team that we knocked out of the winner's bracket had to win all the way back up, and we played them again and we beat them again. But we knocked them out of the bracket and we sat for 3 hours and we had to watch those teams battle each other out. And they had to go on a 4-game win streak just to get back to play us again. And they battled. They battled the entire way through because they had that momentum and we were sitting. Now, granted, we took our experience from Vegas. We talked about it and we said, we can't let this be our mentality. We have to play this game as if it's a do or die game, even though we had a 1-loss buffer because we were in the winner's bracket. But that doesn't work like that in these professional levels, especially in the football, because it's one game and done. You don't get an opportunity like in baseball postseason where you get to play 5 games or 7 games at a time. You don't get an opportunity to take a buffer or take a day off or rest a guy. It is all or nothing with these teams. And if you get a team like the Commanders or like the Buccaneers that are telling themselves, we've got the best team in the league. We have the best quarterback. We have the best receivers. We're setting these records. We're going to go get, our quarterback, Jaden Daniels, going to go get the Rookie of the Year. Or you got the Buccaneers wide receiver Mike Evans breaking records or tying Jerry Rice's records of 11 straight seasons of 1,000+ yards. Or Terry McLaurin on the Commanders side of setting the season record for Commanders and having 13 receiving touchdowns. Like, whatever the case is, that momentum, carry that forward and then beat another opponent and then carry that momentum to a bigger opponent. The bigger they are, the harder they fall kind of mentality. That's something that can swing the favor towards the underdog in those what you would expect to be a diverse game between a number 1 seed and a number 8 seed. And yeah, it doesn't happen often, but it happens. And that's something that you need to be careful of.
True. True. And I will agree with your point to a certain extent of the fact of like, the team that's been playing, playing week in, week out. I mean, hell, look at the college football playoffs that just had, weekend just ended. Every team that had a bye week lost. All four teams.
Yeah. It was
all
like
4 teams.
It was like the week of the underdog. I don't want to call them underdog, but that's exactly what it was. It was all the number, like Oregon lost to Ohio State, Georgia lost to Notre Dame. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And I mean, I'm an Arizona State fan, so you look at it. Yeah, Arizona State was the underdog in that game. Yeah, and they put up a hell of a good fight going into 2 overtimes with a team that was 12.5-point favorites going into it. By the time I think the kickoff happened, they were 12.5-point favorites. But you go through, and I think Arizona State hadn't played a football, like an actual game in like 20 days, I think, with the way like all the bowl games and like the first round of like the bye week and all that stuff happened. And
yeah,
their first quarter, almost half, looked rough. Like it looked like they hadn't played in a while. And Texas came out, looked good, started off hot, started off strong in the beginning. It looked like a team that had been playing. So I get where you're coming from with that too. But I think with the Lions, I think it's going to be a little different just because of the fact that as the bye week rolls through and hopefully they're going a little easier on practice, they're going to start getting some of those guys back from injury. And Aiden Hutchinson got interviewed yesterday before the game, and said he's not going to count out the fact if Detroit makes it to the playoffs, he's not going to say that he won't play. So there's a chance Aiden Hutchinson, who hasn't played since October, is still the leading sacker on the Detroit Lions. The man hasn't played since October.
Yeah, and that it just shows you the quality of players that come out of Michigan. I'm just going to throw that out there. Because who's the other well-known guy that came out of Michigan, right? Fucking Tom Brady. And Derek Jeter, too. So, I mean, I rest my case. I am a Michigan fan at heart, but I rest my case with that. But yes, you're right. There's, that I think it is time that when you have teams like that are of high quality, it's tough to just say one guy does everything. But in Detroit's defensive case, Aiden Hutchinson is an amazing player, and he was a great pickup in my opinion. Which, I mean, you show that from right out of the gate. But then you get, you swing that the other way because now look at them. They've making huge playoff runs 2 years in a row. Detroit is. How long until it's going to be, a pendulum swing back the other way? Is it going to hit them hard? Are they going to fall next year or the year after to where they're eliminated by week 16, week 17 before they even, they don't even have a chance at a playoff run.
Well, honestly, I think people in Detroit, granted, I'm not from Detroit, so I can't really speak on everybody, but I feel like everyone's thought process is kind of like how it was with the Rams. You get Matthew Stafford. The goal was, all right, cool. Let's, we're in win now mode.
Yeah.
Like, let's go out. Let's trade for who we need to get. Let's get what we need. Let's bring Aaron Donald a championship. Let's bring Matthew Stafford one, because at the time we knew he wasn't getting one in Detroit, right? So Rams and Detroit swap QBs basically. Matt Stafford gets his ring, and now they're in the playoffs now, but there was a point where it's, I think it was the year afterward, they were just atrocious and didn't really do much at all, barely won any games.
You're talking about the year after their championship win? Yeah, I agree with you. It was like they came out and they were like, they started like, they didn't win like the first 3 games or something like that, and it was like, or they didn't score something wild statistic, and I was like, God damn, like this is a team that just won a championship. But they also got rid of a lot of players, a lot of coaching staff left, and you see that everywhere, every single year. You got teams that make crazy playoff runs, and all of a sudden their head coaches are up for grabs, or their offensive coordinators, whatever. I mean, shit. Even Minnesota, who's only in the wild card right now, might trade their head coach. It's only happened 8 other times in the NFL to trade a head coach for a draft pick. That is a legit conversation that is happening with potentially the Broncos, with the Saints, with the Jets, with the Titans. Those are teams that are interested in picking up that head coach, who only, by the way, has 1 year left on his contract. So he could very well go to that team for a year. That team could get rid of their draft picks. A team that in the Jets or the Titans that need those draft picks could get rid of those draft picks, have that head coach for 1 year with very little, core there to win a championship. And then that coach could just up and leave and go back to Minnesota or wherever else after that. That.
Yeah, that's true. But I feel like Detroit, I'm not going to say people are going to be happy, if they win a Super Bowl, right? And then immediately start sucking next season just because of the fact that, we won a Super Bowl. But it hurts a little less, like if you like the Rams did, it was kind of that expectation and reality of like, hey, we're going to fucking give everything we have, draft picks, trading for all these high name players, coaches, blah, 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 with the intention of winning a Super Bowl. And after that, we may be on kind of a downhill trend for 2, 3, 4 years in a rebuild because of what we gave up to get that Super Bowl ring. I feel like Detroit's not fully in that situation. I feel like they kind of have given up a lot in the back end, before we hit the, now to get to that. Okay, cool. Now it's time to start winning some games. And I feel like they're in the right direction. I think Dan Campbell is the guy in Detroit head coach wise. I mean, this is his 4th season and he's taken them to playoffs 2 years in a row, won the division 2 years in a row. He was given the opportunity after their 13-1 season or whatever, his first year in. The ownership could have shit canned him, could have got rid of him, could have moved on. But they didn't. They gave him the opportunity. I know a lot of head coaches and stuff don't, a lot of especially first time head coaches and stuff get that whole pressure of hey, you need to win now with not necessarily the greatest team in the world. I mean, hell, Gerard Mayo for the Patriots just got shit canned, and 3 weeks ago, ownership had come out on record saying that, yeah, barring a giant collapse, we weren't going to get rid of him. He's our guy for next year. And then an hour and a half after the game ended yesterday, he got fired. So you go through and you're put in these positions, you sit there and go through, and I feel like Detroit's going to be okay if, hey, let's say they win the Super Bowl this year and next year, they make the playoffs and lose, or they don't make the playoffs and not a huge ordeal. Yeah, all right, cool, we got Goff for a year or two more. Maybe he calls it quits, who knows? But I feel like Detroit wouldn't be super upset that, hey, we didn't quite do it. I know Hutchinson would probably be upset just because, granted, he's on the team, he'll get a ring still, but, I couldn't play for the Super Bowl run that we had,
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I do think that there is a level of disappointment from not being not being one of the guys on the team during the game, but there's also that pride to say I'm part of that team. I made an impact, and I mean shit with Hutchinson still being the sacks leader, he's obviously made an impact enough of the team to get them a couple of big stops and potentially a win or two swung in their favor because of his impact that he had in the games that he did play. So,
yeah,
go ahead.
It's interesting too about like you were talking about the Jets and trading head coaches and et cetera like that. I mean, what is your thoughts on the whole Jets organization? I don't know if you've heard of any of the rumors with Aaron Rodgers and everything, but
so I kind of I try to avoid listening to the commentators talk about it on TV because they kind of fill it in with their thoughts and stuff. I try to wait till there's a source from an app that I use with a little bit more detailed and researched information. Not saying that the guys talking on the TV are not researching their stuff, but usually it's oh yeah, this is what I heard. I don't think that Rodgers is going to quit football unless the Jets say they're going to get rid of him or Davante Adams. But I also don't think that they're going to get rid of Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers as a package deal because there's no organization seeing how Rodgers has played this year and seeing the lack of production from Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers throughout the last half of the year that would be willing to give up a major part of a potential rebuild for two aging offensive guys. If they did and they gave him up for cheap, that's different. But I think the Jets are kind of look for, some immediate future impact on the organization. such as draft picks or young players on offense that can assist in that because they have no backup. I don't even think they still have Zach Wilson. The
No,
Jets.
Denver's got him.
I don't even know who the Jets backup is. I'm trying to find
It's Tyrod Taylor.
Oh, yeah, great. The guy who got replaced by Baker Mayfield from the Browns. He played for the Browns too, Tyrod Taylor did. You know that? Everybody fucking played for the fucking Browns. Okay, yeah, well.
At some point.
Yeah. But my point is that the Jets don't have... They're lacking a lot on offense, but I don't think that they're going to be able to make it up with just Aaron Rodgers and just Devontae Taylor. They have Breece Hall. You know, they have a solid... I mean, they have Lazard too. Lazard played with Rodgers in Green Bay.
Yep.
You know, so
they got Conklin as a tight end. They've got that rookie running back too, other than Breece Hall too. That was actually pretty good and looked promising. I mean, they got Garrett Wilson as well. Like offensively, I think that was the reason why everybody looked at it last year.
Yeah, if you look at this team 4 years ago and all these guys are on it, you've got a solid team. But it's not 4 years ago; it's today. And these guys.
I mean, you act like Garrett Wilson's like 65 years old out there.
No. I'm not saying that all of those guys are aged and dying and feeble. I'm just saying that 4 years ago, you get a lot more production out of a lot more of those guys. Yeah, Tyler Conklin, great, offensive receiver. You got Lazard, who made some good plays for Green Bay a couple of years ago. We've beaten a dead horse in Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers, but like you said, Garrett Wilson too. All those guys. Even
as much as I'm not a big Aaron Rodgers fan, I feel like we've made that pretty clear on this podcast multiple times. I will say yesterday, it wasn't all Rodgers' fault yesterday. Yeah, they won, and he looked good. He looked better than he has at any point so far this season. The last season, I say so far, it's going to keep going for them, but the season's over. So he looked good. He looked a little bit more mobile. He was making some good throws out there. Rodgers was. You have Breece Hall, who a lot of people consider a receiving running back because he is, and that dude dropped at least 3 or 4 passes yesterday, and you could just see the visible frustration on Aaron Rodgers' face, and that's why I think it becomes a little difficult for him to sit there and go like, okay, I'm going to hang it up after this season, and
knowing it's not his fault.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting. I don't see Aaron Rodgers staying with the Jets. I don't see Devontae Adams staying with them. I see it more of that, like you had mentioned that you didn't think was going to happen, that they were going to go as a package deal. I think they go as a package deal. I think Rodgers is going to be like, look, the only way I'm going is if you bring Devontae with me. And it sounds like these are all rumors. I haven't seen anything like official or anything, but I've been reading it all over the the internet again. Take what you want with that, because nothing's official until it actually comes across the ESPN headlines or anything else, that the Jets are going to move on from Rodgers and Devontae Adams this offseason. What they're going to get for him, who knows? But this all could be a moot point if Rodgers says, you know what, I'm done. I've done everything I need to in football. I've won 4 MVPs. I've won a Super Bowl in Green Bay. I've done all I need to.
Yeah. If that was the case, because I think he was, really trying to do that show up, win a Super Bowl and retire happily kind of deal, but
I watched his Enigma. Yeah, I watched his Enigma show on Netflix actually over the weekend.
Okay.
And that was kind of like his whole thing, like how we went on that like darkness retreat or whatever last year or the year before, whatever the hell it was. And it was basically just like basically his big fear was, what am I going to be after I retire? If I'm not just the football player anymore.
Yeah.
And from the sounds of it, he sounds like he's at terms with if this season was the last season. And if he doesn't come back, it sounds like he's okay with it. But again, on the flip side of that, I just have a hard time believing you've been in the league 20 years. Yeah, and from what he was saying in the show, everyone that comes back from Achilles tendon injuries, they're like the second year is the better year. It's like when you're almost at like right where you were before you got hurt. And so that's leading me to believe that's why he's going to come back, because this upcoming 2025 to 2026 season would be the second year since the injury. which would, if that's the case, I mean, hey, why not try it, see how it goes, and then call it after next season.
Yeah, but then let's say you do get signed to a relatively large deal by somebody else. Who's to say it's not going to end up like Atlanta's situation where they sign Kirk Cousins to a massive deal and then 3/4 of the way through the season they bench you, even though you've got 4 years left and they weren't expecting to play the rookie that quickly.
True. I think they rushed Kirk Cousins back because he got hurt. What, like 2 or 3 months after Rodgers did? If I'm not wrong.
Yeah, but did he? He didn't have the same exact injury though.
He tore his Achilles.
Was it a torn Achilles? I thought it was just like a. Okay.
No, he tore his Achilles, and that's why. Okay. And yeah, that's 2 or 3 month time frame. In over a year doesn't seem like that much of a time. It's a sixth of a year. Quarter of a year, whatever it may be. Doesn't seem like that all that much when it comes to healing and everything. I mean, hell, even like I was saying a minute ago, Rodgers was like, hey, the second year after the Achilles tear is after rehab and everything is your better year, your more dominant year. So, 2 months out of the whole 2-year time frame, now you're looking at, a 12th of the time frame. So it's a little different. I feel like Atlanta screwed up with that and put too much on Kirk Cousins. I'm not saying Kirk Cousins is the greatest QB in the world because that's definitely not what's coming out of my mouth. But I feel like they screwed up and rushed him back because they drafted that QB.
Yeah, but I mean, he also didn't look terrible starting the season either, Kirk Cousins.
No, but if you watch, especially if you watch those first 2 or 3 games, because I know they were on primetime a lot in the beginning of the year, just because, hey, it's the Falcons, they're projected to do so well. They got Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson and, Drake London. They're supposed to be, this offensive, their defense was supposed to be good. They're supposed to be this, dynamic team and Kirk Cousins, blah, blah, blah. The same narrative of every team that gets a lot of primetime games and stuff when they're expecting a lot out of them. And then to go through and, hey, we know you got hurt 3 months after Aaron Rodgers did, but we're going to expect you to come out with an offensive line that's good, but not great. It's not the Philadelphia Eagles, but it's also not the New York Giants offensive line. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So go through and, hey, we're going to expect you to try to be a little mobile. And you could see it when he was, running and even just stepping up in the pocket and stuff, that tendon still looks a little delicate, looked a little not 100% ready to go. And I mean, hell, even Aaron Rodgers was the same way up until I would say probably 4 weeks ago. He didn't look comfortable moving around in the pocket. I mean, hell, yesterday he looked comfortable being in the pocket, moving around, being mobile, doing what he needs to.
Yeah.
And
you're right. I will say that was definitely a better version of Aaron Rodgers that we've seen in the last, I was going to say 2 years, but he didn't play last year. But
yeah,
in my opinion, in this last year, for sure.
So, I feel like if you give Kirk Cousins a little bit more time to heal up, and granted, he's not the answer in Atlanta. I think the reason I feel like they rushed him back is because of the fact that they drafted that QB, and they're like, hey, man, plus they paid him a metric fuck ton of money too. It's hard to sit there and be like, hey, we're gonna pay you almost $250 million to play, and we're not gonna play you
$230 million or something like that. 232.
Yeah.
Million?
So I mean, I get it. I can see where Aaron Rodgers can come back and be like, well, if I got told that, my second years after the surgery and stuff is when, it gets better, hey, if the Jets don't keep me around, cool, I'm going to take Devontae Adams. We're going to go somewhere else. But then it comes down to who's going to be willing to take a 42-year-old quarterback, kind of the whole Russell Wilson situation. Granted, Russell's not that old, and take him and be like, okay, cool. Is Rodgers, would Rodgers take, the vet minimum to go to a different team?
Yeah. That's the age old question, right? I agree with you, but go ahead. I don't want to cut off your thought.
No, you're good. But that's the question. You know what I mean? Is he gonna be do what Tom Brady did? Take pay deductions every year to get more people to help him out, or do what Russell Wilson did in this scenario, and take the league minimum. Granted, Wilson's still getting paid by the Broncos a shit ton of money still, so. Would he take that to be like, hey, let's come here, let's go, let me go to a team that I think can win a Super Bowl this year in what more than likely will be my final year? Granted, I know he thought that in New York, but obviously the injury derailed all of that. So,
yeah, you can't really plan around an injury, especially at this late in your career. It can definitely cause a big change in planning for sure.
Yeah, but I don't know. I can see him calling it quits, and I'm leaning more the way that everyone kept talking yesterday and stuff about how like he was taking it in on the sidelines when he walked out on the field to warm up and everything else. It sounds like he's done, like he's calling it at some point this offseason. But I could also see like, well, like I've been saying, hey, like this second year after Achilles, this is my time. Like I'm gonna go ahead and push it out there and try it, and if it doesn't work, then I'm done after this year, no matter what. But he wouldn't announce it. I don't think even mid-season. Let's say he did come back next year. I don't think he's gonna be like, oh, yep, this is my last season for sure, and because then it's just gonna turn into a speculation of that of like what are you gonna do, or if you start sucking, be like, well, he's sucking now because he's focusing on retirement, and I mean, you're sitting there in the spotlight and the limelight. You know what I mean? People are gonna sit there and comment on everything that you do and
yeah, well, that's how it
all
was
decisions you make
with his injury last year. People were just speculating on, oh, he shouldn't come back to football and this, that, and the other. But I mean, he's gonna do what he wants, right? And
no, yeah,
all the more power to him if he does come back and play another year. And if he stays with the Jets, then even better, But I, like you said, I don't think if he plays football again, I don't foresee it being with the Jets. I'm curious what it's going to cost the Jets to get rid of him, or
if anything.
Right, exactly, because he's so old.
I mean, and that's the thing, we say 40, granted 42, especially with the injuries he's had, is especially that Achilles tendon, is old. You put the wear and tear on your body and stuff like that. That's a big amount of damage and stuff to sustain over a career, 20 years, let alone 42 years. He'll be 43 next season if he played. And yeah, and I know we keep putting, we've talked about Rodgers a lot on the podcast, and it's just because of the fact that I feel like it's the end of like that era, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, all those guys, are gone with the exception of Rodgers now at this point. Granted, I know Rodgers showed up I think a year or two after Brady did, and all those guys, Phillip Rivers, all those guys, it's kind of the end of that era, and we're starting to get the the new guys, Mahomes, Herbert, Josh Allen, Lamar, all Mayfield now. I'm putting in that category. And Jaden Daniels and all these guys. Yeah. I put Baker Mayfield in that category, which hurts me because he's in my team's division. But you go through and you look at all that, and it's difficult to see, like that passing of the torch, so to speak, and moving on. Like I said, I'm not a big Aaron Rodgers fan. Don't get me wrong, but the man could throw a football in his heyday.
Yeah.
One of the better ones to ever do it, in my opinion. At least at the QB position, and hell, even maybe just as a general football player in general. But I would say on that note, I just realized we didn't even talk about any draft stuff.
No, we didn't. But I think, next week with there being, if we cover the draft stuff next week with it being past the wild cards and you're going to start shaping up the rest of the playoff picture, you're going to cut out 6 teams this week that are going to solidify 6 more draft picks because of the order that they're going to fall in. I think that'll be a good week for us to talk about draft picks and such. Even though, I mean, yeah, the top, what you said, like 18 teams are already solidified or something like that, or
yeah. I think that'll be a good ending point. Like I said, I know we talk about Aaron Rodgers and stuff, even though we swear up and down we're not going to. I know we've said that about Patrick Mahomes, and we managed to not really mention him or the Chiefs until just now. Like we mentioned the Chiefs earlier, but still, that was just because we're talking about playoff teams. But
we're gonna be talking about them a lot next week.
Dude, I know I'm not.
Once the playoff brackets there, we're gonna be talking about that. But then we're gonna have a little, a little gap, a little 8-day gap from their first and second game. If I say their second game, assuming that they win.
Yep.
But then it's going to be Then it's going to be 2 weeks, right? 2 weeks before the Super Bowl. So.
Yeah, well, I think that's a good wrapping up point in the old podcast. I think we've been on for about an hour now, maybe a little bit longer.
Yeah, it's been almost an hour. Next week we'll cover some draft picks. Like I said, we got the top. God, I don't even know how many.
Should have 20 top 24 should be
20,
locked in by next week.
Okay. Yeah, definitely the top. Yeah, 20 some for sure. I think that's 18 right now.
Yeah, plus 6. Yeah.
We know that the Tennessee Titans have first overall, so we can talk about draft picks that way moving forward. But yeah, this week it'll be a fun wild card weekend. It's always a great fun start to the playoffs. You always expect some kind of upsetting games, whether it's actual upsets or games that you expected to go one way and went the other upset. But we'll see. We'll have plenty to talk about playoff wise, draft points wise, betting wise, and anything else that if y'all want us to talk about something or you have any questions, feel free to leave us a comment down below and we'll answer those live in the next recording. But yeah, Sully, you have anything else?
No, man, I think that's pretty much it. Like usual, it's been fun. I'm looking forward to your ZSBOTTWs being incorrect this week.
Yeah,
and
we'll see.
hopefully we get some people to comment and tell them that you caused me to lose money.
We'll see how it goes. Hopefully, we make up all of our losses in this 1 week and more. So
hopefully.
But yeah, as always, it's been a pleasure, Sully. Thanks for coming and doing this with me for an hour.
Yeah, man.
Next week we got 4 teams or 6 teams remaining in the divisional series. So right,
Yep.
8 teams.
Yep.
Sorry, 4 games, 8 teams. But yeah, we'll catch y'all next week on the episode that's gonna go live on the 14th of January. And we'll talk about some wild card scores and bets and draft picks and whatever. So feel free to come back, hang out, leave us a like, comment, subscribe. Catch us live every Tuesday on YouTube and Spotify.
Yep.
And that's all I got.
Yep. As usual, it's been fun. Zach, have fun. Or good luck with your surgery on this week.
Thank you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see how that goes. We'll see how I'm.
Yeah, you'll be all right.
Yeah. You guys have a great day and see you next week.
All right. Okay, bye.